And so that means that these ETFs sucked up 5% of the entire tradable supply of Bitcoin in 30 days.
Bitcoin pushes through $50,000 for the first time since the late 2021.
I mean, this thing's going back to its all-time high. It's pretty much guaranteed at this point.
What's that?
And it's because of BlackRock. It's because of Fidelity and all 11 Bitcoin ETFs that are buying 12.5 times more Bitcoin per day than the daily issuance number go up.
The verdict's in, right? Wall Street doesn't just like Bitcoin, they love Bitcoin. If you think of these assets, there's been over 5,500 ETF launches in history. Never have we had a fund get to $3 billion in AUM in the first 30 days. BlackRock and Fidelity both just did it. So two for the first time in history. And then if you look at Bitwise and 21 Shares, ARK, they're both going to hit $1 billion this year, or this week. And so now you have 4 funds that are going to hit $1 billion of inflows. But the most interesting part of this is the inflows. These funds are doing $500 million a day of net inflows. But there's only 900 Bitcoin that is actually coming into the daily incoming supply. And so when you look at that, that's like $40 to $45 million. There's 12.5x more demand for Bitcoin than what's being produced on a daily basis.
So how much of this do you think is being generated by the ETFs themselves?
Well, I mean, you can just measure the actual net inflows, right? And so you can just see there is way more buying pressure.
So you're saying $3 billion for BlackRock?
There's $4 billion now for BlackRock, 3.5 for Fidelity, and then you've got Bitwise and 21 Shares will both hit about $1 billion this upcoming week.
And am I too late to buy Bitcoin? Am I too late to buy Ethereum? Watch today's whole video. There's altcoin news you need to see. But because the size of Bitcoin is already an almost $1 trillion asset, are these inflows from BlackRock of any real significance? The CNBC hosts are left speechless.
Total valuation, though, of Bitcoin on a market cap is $1 trillion. So isn't this a de minimis issue or no?
Now, here's where it gets really interesting.
Most of these things aren't trading.
80% of all Bitcoin in circulation has not moved in the last 6 months. You have only about $200 billion that's actually tradable. And so that means that these ETFs sucked up 5% of the entire tradable supply of Bitcoin in 30 days. I mean, Bitcoin has become Wall Street's favorite asset.
What were you going to say, Joe? I can tell you.
I'm not going to say. 5% doesn't sound like a lot. Here's what I'm
30
thinking.
days?
It used to take a lot for someone to invest in Bitcoin.
Yes.
It's real easy right now. And I don't know, are we going to 90,000 in a year? That'd be too weird. People don't double their money by buying an ETF in a year. So I think it might be a currency that you can use because it's going to stay at 47,000.
Well, look, the world is changing for sure. I mean, last year, the NASDAQ was up 50%, right? And so there's definitely these big moves that happen in the traditional markets. Bitcoin, obviously, is that on steroids. But the other thing that's now starting to happen, Fidelity just came out, and they've got a fund. It's an all-in-one fund out in Canada. And they're going to put 1 to 3% of that fund into the Bitcoin ETF. And so what you're going to start seeing is not just direct inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs. You're going to start seeing them putting Bitcoin into all of their funds because it, from a risk-reward standpoint, drastically improves the performance of these portfolios. And they're going to start to realize if I'm lagging indicators, if I'm lagging performance, if I put a little bit of Bitcoin, 1 to 3% into this portfolio, it's going to enhance.
So I cannot see the future. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing what works for me. But the truth is, anywhere under a $69,000 Bitcoin is a great time to buy. We're still 27% down from that all-time high from over 2 years ago. Not that there won't be drawdowns, but the fundamentals have only gotten better.
A year from now, it's where?
It's much higher. I think that if this continues, if we have 12.5 times more demand than we do incoming daily supply, and remember the halving is coming, so we're going to go from 900 Bitcoin to 450 Bitcoin a day. I mean, this thing's going back to its all-time high. It's pretty much guaranteed at this point.
And look at this. This is Google Trends for crypto and Bitcoin. There's no interest from retail right now. Bitcoin is at $50,000 and retail is nowhere to be seen. It boggles the mind how 8 billion people can fumble this opportunity. It was so obvious. And yet here we are, a horde of degens positioning ahead of the biggest wave of capital to ever flow into a new asset class.
What's the thing you worry about? Being wrong about?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's not so much right or wrong as much as it is like the return of this asset is going to dampen over time just as it gets larger and as the holder base changes. One of the things that hasn't happened in the Bitcoin community previously is things like rebalancing. And so when you all of a sudden give financial advisors an asset, and let's say you have a 1% allocation and it goes to 5%, you're going to sell. You're going to rebalance that portfolio. And so when the holder base is changing, you have to understand that the return profile will come down. And so if you think that you're going to buy Bitcoin and it's going to help you retire, those days probably are behind. But what it will do is outperform stock.
But then you're not in the camp of the Cathie Woods $500,000 million base case Bitcoin valuation issue. Because, by the way, if that's true, then you can retire.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, it depends on the timeline, right? So if you're saying it's going to go from 50,000 to 500,000, which is 10x, and that's going to happen over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think she thinks that that's what's going to happen.
That's not that crazy, right? I mean, again, NASDAQ was up 50% last year. I'm not saying NASDAQ's going to go up 50% every year, but we live in a world where it has completely lost all ties to reality because we are printing an enormous amount of money. The interest payment on the debt is $1 trillion. Right? It was a video game number. And so in that world, how much are these assets worth when the denominator is just being debased away? They're going to be worth a lot more. You can just start putting zeros on the end of the values of these assets.
And what about Ethereum? ETH is still 46% down from its all-time high over 2 years ago. And with major asset manager Franklin Templeton just joining the spot Ethereum ETF race, like BlackRock, like Fidelity, and ARK, here are all the current asset managers betting that an Ethereum ETF is next. Ethereum gas fees just hit an 8-month high amid ERC 404 craze. So people are rushing to capitalize on the early stages of what they think will be a trend. And the ERC 404 wave was kicked off on February 5th when a project called Pandora launched the experimental standard. It has since gained over 6,100% and had over 474 million in volume. What is ERC 404? ERC 404 aims to bind ERC 721 non-fungible tokens, i.e. the common standard of NFTs, to ERC 20 tokens. That's pretty much every other token in the ETH ecosystem, allowing for what some have described as fractionalized NFTs, allowing multiple wallets to each own a portion of a single NFT and use that portion to trade with or stake for loans. Now, gas fees are spiking because of this. In fact, the average ERC 404 transfer is 125,000 gas units, more than 3 times the gas of the average ERC 721A transfer. So who even knows if ERC 404 will be here in 5 years? Maybe it will be the standard, maybe it'll be dead. But even today, it is getting competition. ERC 20721 is aiming to be better. They claim they're better. Time will tell. Also big news for SUI, Altcoin. The SUI Foundation launches a blockchain academy with UAE University. So the United Arab Emirates is now teaching about blockchain and SUI in school, i.e. SUI is playing the long game, along with artificial intelligence crypto project AIT. It's time to ramp up our decentralization efforts. AIT protocol is joining the BitTensor neural network to build a marketplace for machine learning that specializes in mathematics, logical reasoning, and data analytics. A marketplace truly open and accessible to everyone. So the news today is that AIT and BitTensor join forces. The BitTensor protocol already establishes a marketplace that transforms machine intelligence into a tradable commodity, so an open public network for machine learning. Last week, the AIT team registered a subnet on the BitTensor network, officially becoming the very first crypto project on the network. And of course, what this means to you is that this will enable the AIT community to mine/earn BitTensor Tau and contribute to the ever-growing BitTensor mission to decentralize access to the world's best digital commodities and machine learning models. And major piece of news for altcoin Biconomy, introducing Biconomy SDK version 4, the easiest and fastest way to leverage account abstraction on your dApp. This will be a major trend in these next few years. And essentially, account abstraction just makes using DeFi for average people easier, better UX. And of course, huge news if you own Solana. Solana's second phone crosses 100,000 pre-sales, securing $45 million for development. And for perspective, it took nearly a year for Solana to sell out 20,000 units of their first crypto phone, but the second phone has hit 100,000 pre-orders in just over a month. And of course, Solana is natively integrated into this phone. The second phone, much like the first, will have custom features designed to integrate buying, selling, holding, and using cryptocurrencies, specifically those on the Solana blockchain, into the device's core functionality. If you're interested in making money in crypto in this next year, click subscribe. We are one of the only channels that keeps you updated with one video per day. See you tomorrow.